Welcome back, everyone. We have Aya Shlachter and Mike George from MGS Global Group. As many of you know, almost 50% of architecture fees for the design phase is spent on design development and construction documents, meaning lost revenue for firms. Aya and Mike will be discussing how to manage the drawing delivery process through their organization systems and operations, and sharing recommendations to keep things running smoothly and on budget. Aya and Mike, welcome to the Section Cut stage.
Thanks for having us.
I'm Mike
Thank you.
George, Managing Director for the MGS Global Group. Thanks for being here. I appreciate everyone taking the time to attend. Let me give you a quick outline of today's talk, which is on how to deliver projects on time and on budget. As part of the talk, we'll share a couple of case studies, 5 key takeaways, our advice on who and when to hire. Our talk will last about 25 minutes, followed by a Q&A section. Aya will do the majority of the speaking, and I'll turn it over now.
Hi, guys. It's Aya Shlachter, CEO of the MGS Global Group. We provide architecture support services to architecture and design firms. We are a female minority-owned company, and I'm also the founder of the Architect My Life podcast, where it's a women business podcast for women creative entrepreneurs. So check it out as well. So I'm really excited to share this how to deliver projects on time and on budget, because as we all know, everybody is busy doing a lot of work. I mean, there's a surge of work happening in the architecture industry. But the first thing I really want to ask, and a lot of the firm owners to know, is to ask this question: know who you are and what you are offering. This question, if you can answer them, really serves as a navigation tool for future planning. But I have 3 particular questions. First question is, what type of firm do you run in terms of project type? Are you a design-driven firm? Only take the ones that allow you to, be creative and follow your design. Second, do you do commercial or residential firm? Or the third type is the rollouts, where you do a bank and you do like 30 banks a year. So, what type of firm in terms of project type? The second question is, what is your firm size, or what do you aspire to be? At the moment, are you a small firm of under 10 people? Or are you a large firm owner of over 100? I also want to ask in the chat if you can tell me how many people work in your firm, or, what the size of your firm is. The last is, are you a medium-sized firm? And I want to talk more about this medium-sized firm. Of like the medium-sized firm typically is like 10 to 75 employees. Majority of architects in the workforce work in this medium-sized firm. And I compare the medium-sized firm as like a middle child. They have to compete with the large firms, but also compete with the small firms. They're most vulnerable in this industry, because they don't really have the wealth and assets that the mega firms have, or the agility of the small firms. So, kind of see where you are where you want to be for future planning purposes. So I'm really excited to share these 2 case studies with you. It's, this was the 2 major projects that we worked on. Although we do architecture support, our team provides architecture support to architect firms. But your in-house team, you can also do this based on what we've learned, and you can apply this to your firm as well. So we will teach you how we were able to keep our sanity and also still remain profitable. So our first slide is a case study of a high volume rollout luxury retail firm handling 50 to 100 stores per month with design development and construction documents. So this retail firm really hired us in the beginning to supplement their team. We did not, we didn't take over, but we helped their design team with the CDs and the DDs. And we did about 10 to 15 projects per month, which was, manageable. But then the challenge was that they had to quickly expand to 50 to 100 stores. And they asked me if I could do it for them, because their in-house team could not anymore produce 50 to 100 drawings per month. They needed supplemental help. But I want to ask questions to the people. Can you take a guess on how we were able to, in terms of staffing purposes, how we were able to deliver 50 to 100 jobs per month? So again, it was too difficult. It was overwhelming for the retail company to do all the design and production. So we helped them do that. So what we did was we hired, obviously, the first thing is to hire qualified individuals, but making sure that they were aligned to their roles. And I came across this stumbling block where people who were applying were architects or licensed architects. So I said, you know, we're doing primarily drafting. Are you open to just drafting? We don't want to pigeonhole you into drafting when you're an architect. So we manage expectations of our staff and the hiring process, knowing that they knew that they were just going to do drafting. And so that's the first thing we did to manage expectations of our new hires. The second was when we finally hired these people, we had old team members that knew everything about the projects, but then these new team members that knew nothing about the projects, but at the same time, we had to deliver 50 to 100 projects. So what I did was we had to restructure our team. And the key for this, for us to be able to scale, deliver error free, and still be profitable, was I had to realign and restructure the tasks of each particular person. So what we did was I created an assembly line. I had one person just doing the cover page, one person doing millwork details, one doing lighting. In that way, the new people just needed to study one thing. So we also created checklists and workflows throughout the end so that instead of one person doing 5 pages of the entire DD set or 10 pages, they just did one. That made it manageable and scalable for us in the long run. Another thing that we did was we had to manage our delivery to the clients. At this point, at the maximum number of drawings, we had 100 per month. That was like the 6 months of really peak work. 100 per month, broken down to 25 per week between 10 employees. But on the client side, the retail company, they also had 10 project managers wanting us to deliver their work. So what we did was we created a project tracking spreadsheet that every day we would track our project and report to them. Oh, by the way, our team was in the Philippines, so it really helped turn around projects overnight. So when the retail firm closed their, end of the retail team's company was at 5 or 6 p.m., we took over and worked overnight. So every day we would give progress reports, how many projects, what's in the pipeline. So if there were any jobs that needed to get prioritized, the clients on the client side, they can meet on their end and talk about which needs to get pushed up to the top. So that was important, but also one of the most important things. And I was an architect. I studied architecture and also urban design, so I'm not really. I wasn't trained to do operations or business management or sales or finance, but the first thing I hired for this was an operations manager. I could not have done this without an operations manager. I was actually part of the drafting team in the beginning. This was early in my career when I started the company. I was drafting as well, but having an operations manager manage everyone back and forth and manage the deadlines was really crucial. Another key person to have on your team, if you can, especially with huge rollouts, if you're doing banks, if you're doing projects for McDonald's or Chipotle or retail companies, is a QA and QC person. When you work with really big companies, they're very strict about their standards. So you need somebody who's not drafting, who's just checking the work and making sure no errors are being made, because errors could cost a lot of money and time as well, which we did not have. So again, the key is to create an assembly line, manage the people that you hired, tell them that you're drafting. It's not an architecture job. Restructure the team, get an operations manager, QA, QC person. And this upfront investment really enabled us to work more efficiently, which led us to the delivered volume, and our clients were extremely happy. As a result, we were able to help them. We actually did over 4,000 sets of CDs and DDs. The project managers really loved us because now they could just focus on design. We did all of the hard work. Um, what else? Yeah, so we actually also worked in travel retail, cruise ships, airports, and they asked us to manage their fixture library. And they've been our partners for the last 12 years now. So that's one case study. Another one is really quite interesting. I think most of medium-sized firms probably can relate to this case study. A client, this is a case study of huge project with little people, only a few team members and crazy collaboration. So this project was a 300,000 square foot hotel and casino in Macau. And the lead designer was based in Chicago, and the other lead designer was based in Hong Kong, but the client was in Macau and the drafting team was in the Philippines. But I can also see that a lot of medium-sized firm owners here are probably getting bigger jobs right now, and they're probably struggling to find people and how to do what this person just did. So challenges that I mentioned: tight deadlines, high volume of work with a small team, and people all over the globe with different time zones. So what we did was we really carefully studied all the drawings in the beginning to ensure that all the design requirements were met and understood. Communication is very important across different time zones, and managing communication with weekly meetings and communication protocols and who to talk to, when to talk to. But part of the solution really was to provide staff for this small company of two. I mean, the design director, lead designer, was actually one a top designer globally. He's recognized globally. He went on his own and landed the biggest job of his career. So he couldn't say no to the job. So he hired us. So we were able to augment his team. What we did in the beginning, the first 6 months, we provided 2 project managers to help him with the design development process, because I didn't want too many cooks in the kitchen. So we were able to manage his costs as well by providing him with 2 project managers on our side who are architects. So for the first 6 months on DD phase, I only had 2 people working for our client, who's the designer. When we got to the CD phase, construction document phase, I added 3 more people under our project managers. So our project manager was working with a designer in Chicago, Hong Kong, and coordinating with our production team. But I also did the same thing. Since it was such a major job, I had 1 person doing hallways, 1 person doing elevators, 1 person just doing structural coordination. Again, this is streamlining the process, error free, as much as as much as we can. So I just have a quick question at the audience. Are your employees fully remote, or do they still come to the office? Anyway, so yeah, that was one of the things that we learned, was just to staff on an as need basis. You don't need, especially for the medium sized firms who are getting all these big jobs, you don't need to staff up immediately, because you don't want to hire and fire people. So maybe keep your, hire your core group of designers and then expand as you grow based on your needs. So funny story, as a result, well, you can see the testimonial. But this is the thing, this client is super high profile. Every day for the first 2 months, my stomach would hurt, because every day he would give us a sea of red lines, and every day I thought I would get fired, because working with a high profile client with very high expectations, he needed us to really learn quickly. But there were a lot of red lines for the first 2 months, but at the end of the day, we were able to deliver, and we've been working, we've been friends for 12 years now. But as a result of working with this person, we were able to really hone in on all of our processes, communication, and procedures, quality control, and coordination as well. So that's our second case study, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this type of influx of work. And yeah, so the key takeaways. So the first thing that I want to talk about is really, in the beginning, we need to manage our clients' expectations up front. a lot of firm owners are just so grateful to get work, especially for the new, new firm owners, that we overpromise and under deliver. We just say yes to the clients most of the time. So what I mean by manage your clients' expectations upfront is to make sure you give them the right time frame of the job. Just because they want it done in 3 months doesn't mean you can get it done in 3 months. Number two, pricing. This is it. A lot of us lose money in CDs and DDs because we underestimate this. What I do in my proposals is, I price things out, but I add 20% for errors, because again, there could be errors, errors and also training. When you have people that come in that are new, you can't expect them to be up to speed. So kind of manage that in terms of pricing, that you might need 20% just to train the new people, especially on a huge job. Um, and in terms of expectations, I think firm owners should really be able to have data driven metrics based on their historical data of their firm, like maybe using different tools for time and motion studies. For your employees, you should know how long it takes for one employee to do, CDs or millwork details, so you can price accurately and not lose money. The second and most important thing, another important thing is involve the staff in estimation and delivery. First, if you involve them, you'll be able to accurately price your drafting or your proposal. But second, you don't want to underestimate the time. At the end of the day, your staff will get burnt out because they have to work so much. And we really don't want our staff to burn out. And there's a lot of, issues about burnout, and, architecture firms, people quitting because they're just simply burned out. So involve your staff in estimation and delivery dates. um Number three, hire the right people. Mike, is Mike here?
Thank you, Maya. So yes, getting the right people to scale your business is super important. It doesn't really matter what size your firm is. When you get a large project that will overwhelm your current staff, how do you scale up to handle that project? It's important to make sure that you don't rush into it. You get people that are going to be with you for the long run. It's important you don't hire the wrong skill sets. Don't go hire a junior architect and have him or her spend the majority of their time drafting. That's probably not going to make them happy long term, and they're probably going to quit. The turnover is already too high in the industry. Um, Building a network of trusted subcontractors really important. Again, regardless of your firm size, if you get a large project, um, and your internal staff cannot handle it or deliver, you can't then go out and start looking for subcontractors. That just delays the process. You want to build a network ahead of time, identify um, people that come to you with recommendations, that have good testimonials. Have them as part of your network ahead of time, so that when work does come in, you can hand over the overflow to someone else who's trusted and can work with your internal design or project managers.
So going back to the hiring the right people, I'm very particular about that. Sorry to go back. I have a friend who's an extremely talented architect, but she quit the profession because she burnt out. Like she was pigeonholed into drafting. So so I've met a lot of people actually who have been in a company for 5 years, and all they've done is drafting, and they haven't gone to the field, they haven't done any CA work. That's why it's really important to hire the right people. Right now, or years ago, the average turnover rate was 14 to 15%, I think. But we should probably lessen the turnover rate, because it's not good for employee morale when people leave. That really affects how people work and view the company and the leadership, really, when people leave. So when people leave, employee morale is low, and then it affects the bottom line, because you got to rehire and train, and it's a waste of time. But again, it's not really about time, but it's about employee morale and how to make your employees happy. So think about that when you're hiring your firm. I was looking at the lady beforehand who said before this lecture, they had to go through 200 resumes to hire two. Okay, you might not have that much of time to look through 200 resumes, but treat your hires like as if they will stay with you your whole career. Because people now are very employees now are very they're not motivated by money anymore. They're motivated by work-life balance, by what they can contribute, as opposed to that they're just drafting and just putting in the hours. The last but not the least is process workflow for drawing delivery. And this is where we really spend, I mean, we're very particular about our process workflow. The nature of our work is so fast paced right now that traditional methods no longer work for us. We need to be error free as much as possible, agile, and by establishing the right processes and managing our clients' expectations up front. So this is a sample of a process document we create. We do have a standard process workflow, but we tweak them per client depending on the situation, the time zones, the client needs. But I think this is really valuable for us, especially when we're doing large projects. So our client work process workflow is divided into two columns. The left side is the client side, and the right is the firm side, meaning your architecture firm. So, so again, we have these two columns of client and firm, and we also have different stages of delivery. But aside from that, we also have key team members per stage, right? So we established that in the beginning, and this is what we do when we onboard a new client. We establish all this upfront, no surprises, no room for error. Stage one is obviously we onboard our client, we identify the scope, we do our staffing requirements, see if we have enough staff, if the budget is okay, pricing estimates and time frame, and then have a signed approval by the client. And guys, I'm just talking about the project delivery process. This is not the entire AIA contract. This is just a subdivision of the AIA contract, which is the CDs and DD phase. Again, the key team members are the principal and the project manager. If you come from a big firm, I'm not a proponent of too many cooks in the kitchen, because if too many people are there, it's so chaotic. There's a lot of politics involved, especially if you come from a big company. So you need to manage that upfront. So the stage one is really client onboarding. Second, this is where the work begins. Most of the time spent is on stage two, where the work begins. We have internal meetings every day, quality control checks, and milestones and updates to clients. And we're very particular about this, especially when we go over the time or when the clients have revisions. We have to make sure that we get a written approval request that, that their changes have been made, that there could be additional costs that could incur in this part. Again, a lot of projects bleed because of this no client communication. I had a bad experience when I just graduated from grad school. I worked in this company, a residential firm, and I was so happy doing all these details. I had all this freedom to do details and to draft. It was so fun for me, my first job. Years later, my client, my boss that time was sued by the client for too many hours. So I got caught in the middle. I was subpoenaed and asked about how come I did all these drawings. Well, no one told me to stop. The boss didn't tell me to, manage. He just told me to just draft and draft. So this you want to avoid as much as possible, especially when you're too busy. You need to be very like a hawk when it comes to finance, because at the end of the day, you're in business to make money, not to lose money. So make sure you have somebody checking your time, like just once a week, check the time, how much you've accumulated, because sometimes you never know, the clients might, if you tell them, they're willing to pay for the extra even though it's not part of the scope. Or if you listen to what I said earlier, add 20% for mistakes or errors already. Team members here, the project manager, the QC manager, and the drafting team. Once this is done, get a written approval by the client, and then stage three, the final quality control and final QA. since we're in the architecture support, this is my primary job, so I have a dedicated QA/QC person. I don't really like to make mistakes as much as possible. The last is the project delivery phase, where we project delivery. We have a project closure, and archiving is really important. You need to archive properly because we tend to forget where to put things. Again, we have a protocol and archive system for that. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention actually is a communication protocol. We provide our clients with a protocol, a full set, like a Word document on who to talk to, when to talk to, who are the key members to talk to. Because when you're dealing with so many people, um, sometimes you don't know the hierarchy of your tasks and what to do. Let me just give you a simplified example. Like when you're doing a residential project, um, and you're working with a husband and wife team, and sometimes I'm sure a lot of you who've worked in residential, you get caught in between the husband and the wife. You don't know who to listen to, and you become the shrink between the husband and the wife. So, upfront, right now, what I do is I'll ask the couple, who's the decision maker in terms of design, who pays the bills. So similar to when you're working in a co-op project in New York City, where the decision makers are the building owners, the co-op board, the subcontractors, the architect, the interior designer. It's just so chaotic. So having a communication protocol document, who to talk to, who to CC, who not to CC, is very, very, very important. So what else did I miss? Um, yeah, like I said, quality control, archiving, clear organization and scope for each of the team members, promotes ownership and autonomy. This is also the thing. When you have a process workflow and all of your key people know exactly what to do, they have autonomy over their work, they take ownership of their work. In that way, that's what you want. And for the firm owner, that these key members know exactly what you're doing. You don't have to micromanage them. You can sleep at night. So I cannot stress the importance of workflows. I think that it looks a little bit intense to do a workflow, but if you spend 4 hours just to manage your communication and create a workflow, everything will run smoothly, especially when the job is like, you're spending thousands of hours in a job. 4 hours to manage this upfront is really very time spent wisely. So so I cannot stress the importance of the workflow. This is why we should really have clarity in this. I'm sure a lot of firms or people who are managing so much right now are just so confused on what to do when, especially now when everyone's busy. But the next slide I want to show is especially for firms who are scaling up right now, who can help you get this done. Who are the two key people that you should hire when scaling your business? Mike?
So the two most important people you have on your team will be your business development manager and your operations manager. Obviously, if you're growing your company and want to grow at a certain percentage each year, you need someone who is a professional, who understands the business, who can help you develop that business. There are so many areas of business development that I could get into, but don't have time for today. Um, important person to bring on board. Key thing to remember: you don't need a full-time hire. You can find a consultant who can work with you in the hours that you can afford to pay him or her for. Secondly, an operations manager, super important. As you grow and volume of work increases, you need someone who can bring it all together, structure the organization properly, get the right work done by the right people, coordinate everything, facilitate everything, and get it back to the designers and the architects that are looking for that work. Aya, you have anything to add to that?
I know I fully support Mike in terms of hiring. Like I said, I'm a creative. I don't know if you know, I'm just gonna say a little bit of my background. We have a little time. I went to architecture school. I have a master's degree in urban design. I worked in 2 or 3 firms. I gave birth, stopped working. My former bosses gave me the work. So I was working with my baby in my 1-bedroom apartment in Queens. This is a side story. And I became like because in my firm, in my former jobs, I was the drafting and detail queen. So all I did was draft and detail, which I loved, by the way, which is why I started this company. So this is how the company grew. But right now that we've gotten, quite not big, but we've scaled up a lot. I would not been able to do this without a business development manager, because how can I pay my people if I'm just drafting all the time, right? So I onboarded a draft business development and operations manager. This should also be applicable to a lot of firm owners who are scaling, and you already have this, people that you've hired and you don't have pipe work coming in. So if you can't invest in a business development manager, I think the firm owner should do business development and stop drafting if you can't afford a business development manager. But just to recap, to conclude, all of us firm owners or business owners, we all have our reasons for starting our firm, right? Are we in it for financial freedom or time freedom, or we just want to build a legacy because we went to like all this architecture schooling? So when COVID hit, a lot of us, instead of falling in love with our future, we were fearing our future because everything was so uncertain. But it should not be the case. We should be able to manage our expectations of our future firm growth right now. So my goal for everyone, based on this little portion of architecture support, is to really plan to have a successful and high performing firm. And the secrets, in my opinion, of having a high performing and successful firm are 3 things. Leadership. The firm leadership is really crucial. The firm has to have a strong vision for the company and drive the company, and have really good values that align with your team members. Because if the team members and the leadership team does not align, it's really hard to move forward. So leadership. Second, processes and procedures. This is section cut. We're talking about business operations. So I mean, big companies have processes and procedures. The small companies need it the most because we're just all over the place. So try to find resources where you can really hone in on your processes. Like I said earlier, when you have a process, it gives your employees and drafting team clarity. When they have clarity, they have employee autonomy, so they know exactly what to do, and they take ownership of the job, which is what you want your employees to take ownership of the job. And your bosses that don't micromanage. Once they know the process and what they're supposed to do, happy employees equals less turnover equals more profitability. So a lot of really impact, a lot of companies really need to focus also on processes and procedures, not just business development, especially in the drawing delivery phase, right? And the third thing really is creating a culture of collaboration. We all learned that during COVID, everyone is mostly working remote, and it's really important for small firms to collaborate and share resources with other bigger firms, and so that we can all be successful together, right? And also collaboration within the team. If your team is so overworked, like Mike said, create um, a network of subcontractors, so you're helping a lot of people, your cash flow, your teams, preventing their burnout, and also helping other companies collaborate. So I think the 3 things are leadership, process and procedures, and collaboration. So right now, a lot of our firm owners want to level up. They're transitioning from being a small firm or small studio of two to medium-sized firm, especially now with the current economy. It's exciting that everyone's busy. But with this, I pose a question. Are you ready to put your systems in place for growth? Do you recognize that you need to hire for specific roles, upgrade in technology, and reorganize your office structure to allow for expansion? Thanks. So if you have any questions, we're here for, I think, another 10 minutes.
That's correct. We have a little more than 10 minutes left.
Oh, great.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of that. You can tell in the comments that everyone loved the graphics and are asking for it themselves so they can really dive in and review it. And Aya, shout out to Queens. That's where I'm coming from as well.
Oh, Jackson Heights.
Nice Forest Hills. Um, so I have a question. How can firm owners and those growing, or even those in managing positions, kind of take on this change that you're talking about? Like, if they don't have a business operations person in place or business development, like, how do you find the right people and then bring them on? Because it takes some time to find the right fit as well, and really maybe see what the next steps you want to take. So as you go through this process, how do you troubleshoot? How do you like pivot when you need to? Can you share some of your experiences about that, Aya and Mike?
A lot of people, I mean, who are looking into outsourcing or augmenting their staff, they just ask their friends, do you have people that you've worked for that's the, I mean, for me, referral is the most important, as opposed to finding some random company somewhere around the world, right? You need to ask your peer group in Facebook or whatever, who have you used as an outsourcing partner, are they good? That's the first way that I would recommend, through yeah, referrals.
And then, how did you make the switch from running everything, from going from the details? I mean, I think it's a similar mindset, right? Because you have to get very focused. You want to make sure that all the dots are connected, but now you have to take a step back, and then you can't do everything. I think in the details, you want to control the
Yeah,
precision, but
so I
when you
have,
have to delegate, you can't do that.
yeah, so my first client was that major retail firm, right? We did like 100 stores. I was drafting, checking all the emails, everything. But I also had a newborn, my second child, and I was working so much. And my dad, who's a business owner, he said, "Aya, you need to transfer information and trust your people, or else you'll burn out and die." Literally, he said. And you have a young family to support. I didn't do this because I was smart. I did this because I was burning out, and then I wisened up later on. And he said, transfer information, trust your employees. I didn't want to give control. This is a major publicly traded company. I didn't want my staff to be writing. I didn't know if their English was perfect, like I was such a control freak back then, that. But then I later realized, which my dad said, do you ever see CEOs working so much like you? Like, you need to transfer information. But the proponent for that was really my burnout and not being able to spend time with my kids.
And that's so relevant too, I think, especially when everyone went remote and then we were just working more and more hours, that the burnout was very real. It's very hard to pull yourself away from the computer. You also mentioned something earlier that really resonated with me, how architects are afraid of like overcharging their clients saying no, or like billing their clients like, or they have trouble asking for what they deserve and what they're worth. And then you mentioned the point where you saw the red lines from your client. You're like, oh no, is he going to fire me? Even when I was coming up with like as a junior architect, I was like, there's so much I don't know. Like they're going to fire me. Like is this imposter syndrome is so like everywhere. Can you tell me like ways that you can deal with that, or is it just comes with time?
Okay, the best client that you have is the client that complains the most. Always. Because when they complain the most, you're learning so much from them and you want to continuously improve, right? My clients are all architects and designers. So when I get red lines every day, it's bleeding. I mean, my stomach hurts and I get panicky. But at the same time, it's a learning process. I'm grateful for this opportunity to learn, and you need to show that you're interested. Don't get upset. It's business, right? We all make mistakes. It's when you hire new people in your firm, you don't expect them to know what to do, right? So again, as a firm owner, for you firm owners, be patient in terms of training your team members, because you have 20 years of experience, they're new. So like I said, manage that into the budget, your mistakes and the teaching process.
And then when you are asking about the size of the companies, we had some 12-person companies, one 400 plus. So can you give us some good snippets to take away for the like? So actually, not exactly the middle child. We have the to both ends of the spectrum.
Snippets in terms of like what to advise to these big companies.
I guess for a 12-person firm and a 400-person firm, how can you take your middle child advice
Mike, can you
and
answer that?
Sure. Actually, the process is really the same, regardless of how big your company is. If you don't have a well-defined structure and process for managing certain projects that come in that are huge, and you need to scale up a certain team or a certain department, you can be a 400-person company and have a team of 20 drafters and 10 graphics artists and all of that. But if you get a huge project and they're already loaded with all your existing projects, what do you do? Do you just tell your client, okay, sorry, we're going to deliver late because we're loaded right now? You can't. You have to go out there and figure out, who do I have in my network? If I don't have a network, I need to create one fast. Who can I subcontract this work to that I can trust, that I can manage, that I can get the results back at the same time? That applies to a 10-person company as well. You can't scale up quick. If you get a huge project tomorrow, what are you going to do? Go out and look for people to hire? That's a 3-month process. Your project's probably due before you can hire people. So again, have to have a network of trusted vendors and suppliers that you can go to quickly. It's sort of an on-demand sort of situation. You can't really spend the time to hire key people every time. It just doesn't work. And then what do? You lose that big project, and now you can't pay this guy because you're no longer getting the income. It's really a balancing situation. When you're growing, you really need to balance it.
yeah, absolutely. We've had a discussion previously at Monograph. It might even take 6 months for you to find the perfect fit for your
Yep.
company.
Yep.
And you definitely don't want to be hiring only based on projects. So it's really envisioning the future for your company and where you want to head. You also mentioned about the amount of communication that has to happen very clearly. What does that look like? Are there certain tools you use, or is it very simple? Just is it email even?
I will ask Mike to answer. He does all our processes.
Okay.
Awesome.
So we have multiple means of communication. We actually use a portal for our company. So all inbound work comes through a portal. Every client goes through what I call an onboarding process, where we gather everything they need, their specific requirements, their standards for getting drafting done. We get all that together, and then we give them a login to our portal. We do a quick half-hour training session, show them how to use our portal. They submit all the work through the portal. That portal is then managed by a team lead, who then distributes the work to our drafting and production support teams, depending on who's working on it. So all the communication is sort of filtered and funneled through a project lead. We also have a client relations manager who actually contacts and does the onboarding process, and then make sure that everything runs smoothly throughout the life of the project, including post-project surveys.
Yeah, but for an architecture firm, again, if you're working with just a developer that does multifamily, and you have all these people that need your advice, I think what's important is to sit down in the beginning and just say who's responsible for design, for finance, for this, who should be CC'd, because when you're working with a large team, it could get so chaotic. So I guess having, even if you don't have a portal, having just that initial meeting on client communications is key. You're muted.
Thank you. I imagine there's a certain amount of redundancy that you have to just have as well with everything that you reiterating and your communication processes. And also, as we're wrapping up, if there are attendees that would like, is it okay if we share your slides with the attendees
Yes,
that were?
sure.
So if there were a few people that asked, but if you're also interested, put your name in the comment. It'll make it easier for us to send it to you afterwards. you can tell there was so much information in there that was just very valuable. And I thank you, Aya and Mike, for sharing that with us.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful. I hope you guys learned something from today's session.